True. Nervous. Very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard many things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then can you say that I am mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. Cold, cold. Now, the story continues. We've finished the exposition. Let's continue on. Check out my new form of paper for the 17th century. Quite excited about this, actually. It's called an iPad. And I'm using it because I forgot the story at school and I'm quarantined with Spanish flu, tuberculosis. And I can't go back to get the story. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, so I don't want to go to my house to get my book. So I'm going to be reading our story from this newfangled, fabulous type of quill, paper, parchment, as you will, called an iPad. Pretend like it's paper and let's move on with the story, shall we? It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. He had the eye of a vulture. A pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Cold. Now, this is the point you fancy me mad. Madmen know nothing, but you should have seen me. You should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before which I killed him. And every night, about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then, when I had made when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a lantern, a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you should have seen. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very slowly, slowly, for the hinges creaked. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. And this I did for 7 long nights. every night, just at midnight. But I found the eye always closed, and so it was impossible for me to do the work, for it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into his chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone and inquiring how he had passed the night. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph to think that there I was, opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. I fairly chuckled at the idea, and perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. Now, you may think that I drew back, but no. His room was as black as pitch with this thick darkness, for the shutters were closed. I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. And in the meantime, I did not hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan. And I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well, many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept. It has welled up from our own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say, I knew it well. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt, and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise, when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy himself them causeless. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, it is nothing but the wind of the chimney. It is only a mouse crossing the floor, or it is merely a cricket which has made a single chirp. Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim, and it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel the presence of my head within the room. When I had waited a long time, very patiently, without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice and fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that it chilled the very marrow to my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray, as if by instinct, precisely upon the spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but an over-acuteness of the sense? Now, I say there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, much as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well, too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury as the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. Yet for some minutes longer I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder, louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. Ow! He shrieked once. Only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily, but for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead.